Are you ready to surrender? This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV, and this week my special guest is transformational teacher Kute Blackson. We're going to talk all about the art and power of surrender right here, right now on Guys TV. You can also catch me on KCAA Radio here in Southern California and Guys Radio, my worldwide podcast. Guys TV, Guys Radio, thanks for your support. Okay, we're going to have a conversation about surrender. Kute Blackson is an inspirational leader. He's a transformative teacher, national best-selling author of the book, You Are the One, and we're going to talk about his new book, The Magic of Surrender. Kute's a member of the Transformational Leadership Council. He's a winner of the Unity New Thought Walden Award, and he's considered a next-generation leader in personal development. His mission is to inspire people to access their inner freedom, live authentically, and fulfill their life's purpose. Sounds like a lot of good stuff there. The Magic of Surrender, his new book, is a guide to help us move past inner struggles and discover the power of letting go of control and how this leads to more. And I think that's an issue that so many of us have about being afraid of letting go and needing to be in control, where it kind of works just the opposite to that. So typically surrender is considered passive. Kute wants to show people surrender isn't about giving up. It's about being strong, courageous, and learning how to tap in. So let's welcome Kute Blackson to Guys Radio. Welcome, Kute.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, surrender. Let's start right at the beginning. Why is surrender the most important thing we can do right now?
Wow. Yeah, I think surrender is the most powerful thing that we can do as human beings. I think surrender is a password to freedom, the password to the key to our next level. If you look at the great ones, the truly great ones, Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Mandela, Martin Luther King, even Elon Musk, on some level, they all surrendered themselves to a purpose that was bigger than themselves. They surrendered themselves to life. They listened to their soul. And in surrendering themselves, they transcended themselves. They transcended their own sort of human limitations. And they tapped into another dimension of their potential, another dimension of themselves. And in that surrender, I think life was able to move through them and use them and create through them and manifest through them in ways that they could not have done on their own, in their own sense of personal power. And so I think in our culture today, surrender, when we truly surrender, we let go. When we truly surrender, there's less stress, there's less anxiety, there's more peace, there's more freedom, there's more flow. And I think in our society today, we have this idea that surrender is weak and that surrender is passive, and that surrender is waving the white flag, that surrender is giving up, that if you surrender, you're going to be a victim, you're going to be taken advantage of, you're going to be left behind, you're going to be a doormat. And I'm actually saying, wait a second, what if you surrender, you didn't get less in life, but what if you got more? Because there's fear of, if I surrender, I won't manifest my goals, dreams, and desires. And so if you surrender, what if you didn't get less than? What if you got more than you could have imagined with your conscious mind, more than you could have even visualized and imagined with your own mind's limited capacity to imagine life? And so just to really be clear, surrender is a letting go of control, or letting go of the illusion of control that we think that we have. Control really is a master addiction, and control is one of the ego strategies to keep us safe. And so the ego, as human beings, we're constantly trying to control all aspects of life so that we don't experience the pain that maybe we experienced in our childhood. And so surrender is a letting go of control. Surrender is when we stop trying to force and manipulate life to fit our limited idea of how we think it should be. Surrender is letting go of the idea of who we think we should be and the life we think we should be living, and opening to the moment, opening to what's seeking to express through us, opening to the life that's seeking to happen, open to the authentic truth of our hearts. It's when we take the limits off of life, and in surrender and taking the limits off of life, we're then truly available and open to the infinite possibilities. And I think that's when magic can happen. So when we surrender, we're available to miracles, we're available to magic, we're available to the blessings. That's why the book is called The Magic of Surrender, because we all want magic, but often we're not willing to surrender. And so surrender is a letting go it's an availability. It's an allowing life to guide us and lead us.
Okay. When people they hear the word surrender and they think about letting go, are they surrendering to anything in particular? Is it to source? Is it to their higher self? Is it to just letting go of control? There's many ways you can interpret what surrender actually is and what you're surrendering to. Because people, as you know, particularly nowadays, have this need of control. If they feel like they're not controlling something, they feel like sometimes lost, or lost at sea or astray. So what are they, in your opinion, Kute, what do people need to surrender to and let go of?
Yeah, you're surrendering to what you truly are. You're surrendering to your truth. You're surrendering to life. You're surrendering to, your soul. You're surrendering to really what you are. And I think part of why surrender can seem a little, I really believe that surrender is perhaps the most natural thing for us to do as human beings, even though it can feel scary, even though it can feel terrifying, and we resist surrender, but it's natural. Like you breathe in and you have to breathe out. Surrender is actually hardwired into our physiology. This is life reminding us that surrender is the nature of life. And so it's a surrender to life. It's a surrender to existence, a surrender to, I don't want to say the divine, to God, but it's not something outside of oneself. It's a surrender to what we really are. And so I think surrender is really natural, even though it doesn't always feel that way. I think part of why we tend to resist surrender, or the ego resists surrender, is the ego being our perceived sense of self, the sense of self that we have been conditioned to believe ourselves to be. An ego is not a thing. Ego is a process of identification, identifying with the body, with the name, with past, with history, with beliefs. And the more we hold on and identify with ourselves as that, the more scary surrender seems, because to let go of control, and the ego's job is to control. The ego's job is to reinforce its existence. The ego's job is to keep us safe. And so when we talk about surrender and letting go for our sense of what we think ourselves to be, ego, it's terrifying, because to let go feels like a kind of death. To let go feels like, if I surrender and I let go, then what I think I am will no longer exist, is going to die. And so ego kicks in and resistance says, no, I got to control everything, because if I can control everything, then I'll exist and I'll be safe. And so ego isn't a thing. When we can recognize that ego isn't a thing, it's ego that resists surrender. But when we recognize that ego isn't a thing, it's a process. Like this phone is a thing. This headphones is a thing, this pen is a thing. Ego is the process of holding on, the process of identifying. Like a bicycle is a thing. The process of pedaling is a process. And so ego is reinforced in our sense of identification. So when you can realize that we've been conditioned to believe that we are this ego structure, it can shift your relationship with ego in a certain sense. And when I think you shift your relationship with ego and what you perceive yourselves to be, it shifts your relationship with surrender, in a really, really profound way.
Kute, what was going, very passionate about surrender. You've got a whole terrific book, The Magic of Surrender, about it. What was going on in your life to give you the kind of epiphany, if you will, to talk about surrender and share your knowledge with everybody?
Yeah, I would say this was not the book that I thought I was going to write. I had all sorts of agendas and ideas of the book I wanted to write, the book I thought I should write, the book I thought would be a bestseller, the book I thought publishers would want, the book I thought my audience would want. And I had an entire whiteboard of ideas, really brilliant ideas. And none of them really resonated. None of them felt authentic. None of them felt in integrity and true. And when I looked at these hundreds of ideas, maybe one day I'll write a book about them, but when I looked at these ideas, none of them felt aligned. The only word that I remember felt truly aligned was the word surrender. And when I saw that word on the whiteboard, I resisted it. So here I am. I was resisting the book about surrender and had to surrender to the book about surrender and get my own ego out of the way, you know, of what I thought I should be writing about. And when I really let go, the whole book started to download itself and ideas started to flow. I realized that the book had a soul of its own, and I had to surrender to the book that was seeking to be written, not just the book that I was seeking to write. And that's when magic happened. Ideas came and things germinated. And it took me back, and I started to, in that moment, I began to reflect on my entire life and my childhood and my entire history. And I saw that so much of my life, everything started to make sense. So much of my life, so much of my upbringing, so much of my experience with my parents and the story of my parents and how they met and all of these, my parents met and, you know, agreed to get married, having never seen each other, met each other, spoken to each other, like they couldn't even speak the same language. They were living surrender. So much of my life was about surrender. So I felt like this was the book I was born to write, but I didn't realize it until, you know, that moment. And so about 4 years ago, my mother, who I love deeply, was about 4.5 years ago now, was diagnosed with stomach cancer. And it was a really hard moment for me. I was on tour for my first book, traveling the world on a high, and life has a way of humbling you in various ways, you know, bringing you to your knees. And I began to fly back and forth between Los Angeles and London, literally every month, to be with my mother during her chemo sessions. And I would, for a week, I would stay with her, then fly back, and I would sit with her in chemo and hold her hand, and I would cook with her and take walks with her. And I just got to be with my mother. And it was so profound because I realized I hadn't spent this much time with my mother since I was a child. And I started to ask myself the question, why have I not spent so much time with her? Why did it take to this moment when she was dying for me to prioritize this moment? I started to see that I'd missed out on so many of the beautiful moments with my mother. And it was during this time that I think the seed of the book of surrender was planted in a way that I wasn't aware in that moment. And so about 6 months into the process, the doctor said to my mother, there's nothing else we can do. You're going to die, so get your affairs in order. And it was an intense moment. And I looked my mother in the eyes and I asked her 2 questions. The first thing I asked her was, are you afraid? And she said to me, I'm not afraid because I know I'm not this body, that what I am, this body is a temporary vehicle for my soul, that what I am is beyond birth, is beyond death, and when I die, I'll be with you from the other side. And I felt such a sense of strength from her. Then I asked my mother, is there anything that I can do for you as your son to make your final days easier? What can I do? What do you need? And she looked me in the eyes. And this is, I think, when the seed of the book was planted. She looked me in the eyes and she said, there's nothing I want and there's nothing I need. All I want is what God wants for my life. In that moment, I realized who she really was. In that moment, I realized that she was free. This entire year, she didn't cry. She wasn't feeling like a victim. She wasn't mad at the world. She was completely surrendered to life. She wasn't attached to living. She wasn't attached to dying. She was open to the highest unfolding of her soul and her journey. And there was a profound freedom that she experienced. And so I think in that moment too, she showed me what surrender looked like, not on a meditation cushion or a mountaintop. She showed me in real life, when you're facing your mortality in the face of a difficult situation, what surrender means. And so that was an inspiration that triggered the book that I didn't know I was going to write.
A beautiful story. My special guest on Guys Radio, Kute Blackson, The Magic of Surrender, Finding the Courage to Let Go. Why do you think, Kute, so many people have trouble letting go? And what are some of the ways to not to let go, but how they can prevent themselves from kind of doing it wrong. You know, the missteps that people make when trying to surrender. They think it's giving away. A lot of times they think it's like giving something away or losing control, but it's really more freeing and empowering because it allows you to be aligned to so much more that's out there for you.
Yeah, look, I think when you realize that surrender is natural and you realize that letting go leads to more. And I think if people can realize that letting go actually leads to more, and the next level of your life, whatever the next level is, requires that you let go of what's not aligned. The next level of your life requires that you let go of what's not working. The next level of your life requires that you let go of what's not true, what's not authentic. Yet as human beings, creatures of habit, creatures of comfort, what we tend to do is hold on to what we know, hold on to what's not working because it feels comfortable, because it feels familiar, out of self-preservation, out of comfort. And holding on simply keeps us stuck. Holding on blocks our blessing. And so I think what we have to be willing to do is, one of the things that keeps us stuck as human beings, I wouldn't call it a misstep, but one of the things that keeps us stuck and blocks our ability to be free or manifest at next level are all the ways that we lie to ourselves as human beings. Mm-hmm. We are constantly, whether we're aware of it or not, lying to ourselves, not telling ourselves the truth about who we are, what we feel, and what we want. We stay in relationships that we know are not right, that we know are not aligned, where we're no longer in love, out of guilt, out of comfort. We work jobs and careers that perhaps we're not passionate about anymore, or it's not truly an authentic expression of our purpose and what we've been put on the planet to do, out of safety, out of security, and wonder why we're not happy. And so to truly, I think, have a breakthrough in letting go, or to take a first step in surrender, you have to be willing, number one, to acknowledge and ask yourself the question, what lies am I telling myself? What lies am I telling myself? I think if we start there, there is no surrender and there is no transformation without truth. There is no freedom, there is no fulfillment, there is no true authentic happiness or next level without truth. To me, the truth is what sets us free, and the first place we can start is the willingness to tell ourselves the truth. So what lies am I telling myself? And just get real. We have to want the truth more than we want what we have. We have to want the truth more than we want what we think we want. And to me, truth is real spiritual practice. Truth is real meditation. Truth is real therapy. And by not telling ourselves the truth, we keep ourselves stuck. And so what lies am I telling myself? Sometimes it can be scary to tell ourselves the truth. It can feel scary to let go and surrender. And so what the ego, which we talked a bit about earlier, what the ego tends to do is we tend to hold on. And one of the sneaky strategies is we play this game of confusion, of I'm not really sure what my truth is. I'm not really sure what my purpose is. I don't really know if this relationship is right for me. I don't really know where I'm going. I don't really know what I really want. When deep down we do know. There is a part of us, if we're really honest, that knows. There's a part of us, if we're willing to get still, that has a sense. And yet sometimes it can be scary to acknowledge the truth, because the fear is, if I acknowledge the truth, then what? Then what? The fear of the consequence, the fear of what will happen. And so the sense of the game of confusion that we play is a survival strategy of the ego to keep us safe so that we don't have to actually take action on what we know. And so what I tell people is, take the pressure off of yourself of having to take any action. Take the pressure off of yourself of having to take any action and just acknowledge the truth. And that might mean, you know what? I'm not in love anymore. Scary as it might sound, I'm not in love anymore. And just feel that. You don't have to break up. You don't have to divorce. You don't have to do anything, but just acknowledge the truth. When you take the pressure off of yourself of having to take action, it can free you up to simply acknowledge the truth. I'm not in love anymore. Okay?
I was going to ask you, I think you may have answered the questions. I was going to say, since the name of the show is Guys Radio, and we do sometimes touch on men's issues, though we go way beyond that. What would be your advice to today's men in terms of how they can best handle surrender? Because there is kind of the whole macho thing going on where, oh, if I surrender, I'm letting go, I'm not a real man and all that. And obviously that's not the case.
Yeah, that's not the look. I think you're a real man when you're willing to face the truth. If you're a real man when you're willing to acknowledge what's real, you're a real man when you're willing to live in integrity. You're a real man because it takes real courage to tell yourself the truth. It takes real courage to not live someone else's version of your life. It takes real courage to face the consequences of your action. That is what it is to be a real man. And so when we're willing to take the pressure of having to take action, we can get in touch with the truth. Like, the truth is, I'm not in love. It's scary, it's terrifying, but that's the truth. And feel that. When we can feel the pain of the truth, you know, like when we tell the truth. So the last question to kind of answer might be, what are the lies I'm telling myself? What is it costing me? When we tell ourselves a lie, it is painful. It's meant to be painful. It's meant to be painful. It's not meant to feel good. And so to me, pain is a signal. Pain is a blessing. Pain is your friend. Pain is a signal that you're not living in alignment. So it takes real courage in a real man to say, you know what? I'm not happy. It takes a real man and real courage to say, you know what? I'm living out of integrity. Sometimes we get caught up in what I call the trap of success. We do something and it works. We get rewarded. We become successful. We get identified. Our ego gets identified with, oh, look at me. This is what I've created in the world. And we keep doing it for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, a decade, 2 decades. And we keep doing it. Now we're successful by the world standards, but we no longer feel alive. We no longer feel on purpose. We no longer feel in integrity. And now we're caught in the trap of success, and we're afraid to be honest that we're not truly happy, we're not truly alive. And so what I would ask the men listening is, what are you currently doing in your life that's working? Let me repeat, what are you currently doing that's working? But doing more of it is inhibiting the next level of your growth, the next level of your purpose, the next level of your life. And so when you really are willing to just sit with the pain, it takes courage to sit with the pain of the truth. Like, the lies I'm telling myself, wow, it's costing me freedom, it's costing me aliveness, it's costing me integrity, it's costing me joy, it's costing me my own self-respect, it's costing me, and to sit with the pain and let that pain marinate, let that pain burn, feel it. What we tend to do as human beings is we feel pain and we drug it away, drink it away, sex it away, shop it away, work it away, succeed it away, just so that we don't have to feel it. We numb it. To feel the pain takes courage. But when you feel the pain, that can start a process inside that can then move you into deeper truth and deeper alignment. It takes courage to live alignment.
Fantastic. Kute Blackson, you're doing great work. The name of the book, The Magic of Surrender, Finding the Courage to Let Go. Kute, tell everybody where they can learn more about you, and that you have an event coming up.
Yeah, people can go to my website, kuteblackson.com. That's number one. Number two, if people feel inspired and want to go on a deep dive, twice a year, I do an event in Bali. It's called Boundless Bliss Bali. So www.boundlessblissbali.com. 12 days in Bali, transformational. It's some of my deepest work. Entrepreneurs, visionaries, and leaders are all invited. And I'm doing an event July the 12th, 5 days. It's a 5-day summit. If you want to learn how to surrender in every area of your life, www.thesurrendersummit.com. 5 intensive days, virtual, online, and it's free. So register. I'm bringing some of my friends on, Neil Donald Walsh, John Gray.
They've both been on the show.
Yep, Neil Donald Walsh, John Gray, who else? Martha Beck, who's been on Oprah, Ariel Ford, Barbara DeAngelis, Catherine Woodward Thomas. I mean, the list goes on.
Fantastic.
You can go to www.thesurrendersummit.com.
Okay, Kute Blackson, terrific stuff. The name of the book again, Magic of Surrender. Great job, Kute. Very nice to meet you. Hope you'll be back here on Guys Radio.
Thank you.
If you're enjoying the content and the guests I bring you each and every week to Guys Radio and TV, please subscribe to our channels. Thanks for your support.